I'm headed out to see, have some lunch and see a local psychic store. I'm taking an Uber there and then I'm gonna walk back. I think I found a better way to walk home. It's not as hilly. We'll see. But anyway, I'll take you with me. I can't even believe I got an Uber. It's the first time I've tried in about 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that. So, but I am gonna walk back because I know it's gonna be harder to probably even just get a ride home. So, and I need to walk. So, hey everyone, EG Spirit here. So, yeah, I went on my outing today and I was able to get an Uber down to the kind of main town area. And I went to the psychic reader down there, and I'm going to tell you about that experience. I had kind of mixed feelings about it. I've been to many, many psychic readers in my life. Not many in the last probably 7, 8 years, but when I was younger, I went to a lot of them. And if you watched a previous video on this channel about it, you know that I'm somewhat skeptical about people being actual psychics. I think most people have intuition, as I do, and sometimes it's heightened, and sometimes we have like a real like psychic moment, and if our energies get aligned the right way, we can be or seem incredibly psychic, as I have a couple of times in my life. But I just don't believe most readers that, do tarot card readings or whatever. I don't really believe they're necessarily more than intuitive. But the reason I go is because it seems to provide clarity to my own intuition. In other words, they might say something and then all of a sudden I have an insight. And that's kind of what happened today. I went to the psychic and I did have kind of a mixed reaction to her a little bit. Like I didn't instantly just go, oh yeah, this is the person that I should be getting a reading from. But I also wasn't turned off by her. So I felt like it was worth, paying to have a tarot card reading. So I did that, and she laid out the cards and talked about it. And what's interesting is she really, and I didn't tell her anything about me initially other than my first name. And as she continued, though, she was starting to hit things that I knew were probably accurate. So I did like fill in stuff for her and say, yes, that rings true for me because. And one of the things that she really keyed in on, and that's the main thing I'm going to focus on this, is that she said, you have been really under attack spiritually for a number of years. Like maybe 7, 8 years. And I thought about a number of you watching the channel who, messaged me that or even commented on that. And it was really hard for me to really believe at first that I might be under attack. But as I got she's the first person I've gone to for an actual reading. I went to a Reiki person when I was in California, but that was just for kind of healing. She didn't do a reading or anything like that. It was just a healing therapy. And so it really hit me when she said that. And it was one of the first things she picked up on in the cards. And she said, so she told me, she said, it probably feels like you've been, kind of hitting your head against a brick wall. Like you try things and even when they work out, it's like something weird happens. And like she said, I just feel like you have been under some sort of attack. And she said, do you know of someone that would have, done that? And at first I was thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. Come on. Like, I don't know any. And then it hit me. And there were a couple of people that came to mind that this would have been about 8, 9 years ago that, back about 11 years ago, I was really heavily involved with a spiritual community of people. We went to meditation groups together. We had activities together, things like that. And there was a person that I met that became a friend who I knew had a lot of spiritual power, shall we say. And eventually, about 8, 9 years ago, the friendship just kind of ended because we just clashed on something, and it just, I just couldn't stay friends with her. And so that I thought of that person, and then the other person was around the same time, wasn't in the same community, but was someone I knew that was also very spiritually oriented, that also kind of practiced some darker kind of things. So as the reader today was, talking about things, I really thought of and I had not thought of those two people before. It had never popped into my mind that that's where it would come from. Because I just didn't think, oh, like something that was like 8, 9 years ago, how is that going to still affect you? Well, apparently it can. And apparently, even if the person who kind of attacked you in a spiritual sense dies, that whole thing can still last. And I was kind of astounded by this because I thought, and so I asked her, I said, is this like a voodoo thing? And she said, well, no, not exactly. But, people can, they can kind of conjure up like negative things against another person and basically, not necessarily cause like someone's death or something, but she said they definitely can cause havoc in that person's life. Well, I'm going to have to take some time to really think about this more, but it really, it did provide clarity for me because I suddenly realized, hey, this really could be true. I mean, if she's picking up on it, and I've talked about things on my channel about having difficulty with this, that, or the other, and some viewers have picked up on it, then there must be something to it. So I have to figure out what to do about this. Of course, here's the thing. This reader, she does like, spiritual cleansings and rituals and things like that will help. And, she offered that, but it's just too expensive. And I don't want to, right now I have to spend money on like something very practical, which is I have to basically, whatever money I have, I've got to spend on a car soon in the next month or two. So I just can't be spending extra money. So I told her, I said, I just can't do that right now. And it wasn't a horrendous amount of money, but it was still more than I can pay right now. I mean, I paid $60 to have the reading, and I was comfortable doing that because, once a month doing something like that, I could do that. But I can't be spending like a few $100s in addition to that. So the thing is, I do believe that this is true. And she said some other things that I felt were right on the money, and then other things that weren't. She pointed out, which is what I believe myself, is that she said you are in a transitional period, and when you get through this, everything will be much better, in the future. I see, good things here coming. And, she also indicated to me that she believed that, because I was joking with her and saying something like, well, I don't have to last too long. I mean, I'm getting up there. It really doesn't matter. I don't need to live a huge amount of time. She says, well, you are going to live a long time. So I said, oh, bummer. Anyway, I know you'd think most people would want to live a long life. I'm like, yeah, not so much. I mean, only if I can get healthier and stay healthier over time and still have my mental faculties about me. And my mom always wanted to live to be really old, but that was because she was afraid of dying. And I don't have that same fear. So for me, I never expected to be 70. Never expected to be 70. So for me, every year's a bonus at this point. I mean, heck, I should have died at 1. I did die at 1, came back. So, and there were a few other times I almost died, as I've shared with you on my other channel as well. So the thing is, I don't regret going and getting the reading, but here's the other thing. The reason I didn't jump at the chance to do like this cleansing ritual thing that she has to do over like 4 sessions and, you know, whatever. And, you know, if it wasn't just the cost that was prohibitive to me, it was, I just wasn't really sure about her. Like I thought, I really don't want somebody doing something like that with me if I really don't know what kind of person they really are. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, it was kind of easy to just turn it down. Not that I think she was a bad person at all. I just don't know her. You know, if it was a reader that I had been going to for a while, you know, like back when I lived in Arizona, there were a couple of people that did like energy readings and psychic readings or tarot readings, whatever. And, you know, I got to know them over time. I would go get a reading every 3 months or something, and, you know, 4 months, something like that. And, but I got to know them over time, and I got to know like what kind of energy they really had and like what kind of person they seemed to be. And if I just can't go to somebody the first time and then all of a sudden jump into this energy reading or cleansing ritual thing, because I just don't trust it unless it's from the right person. And I'm sure you guys, most of you will agree with me on that. So yeah, I'm going to have to look into my own ways that I can do my own cleansing, I guess. I think the thing that might have made this whole attack less significant than it has been is the fact that I do meditate and that I do have a spiritual practice. I think if I hadn't had that, it might have actually been a lot worse over the years. And it hasn't been something that's been constantly bad, but it's just been like this negative pall hanging over me. Like it's just been there. Isn't that weird? It's not weird. It's just, that's what it is. It's like a negative pall. So I just wanted to share with you my experience today doing that and going to the psychic reader. You know, it was good. I mean, there was a couple things she said that I just was like, no. I mean, she was doing the cards, and I could actually, these weren't like the original kind. These are more what they call the oracle cards, where you can even look at them yourself and kind of tell what's going on. And you know, one of the cards was like, one of the things she said that I thought was really just off the mark was she said, oh yeah, you'll be, not right now, but in the near future, a few months or whatever, you'll be asked to help someone else, like who's going through some physical stuff, and that there's a child involved or a, you know, a young person involved, and you're going to have to care for that person. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think that's likely. I don't... I'm not in touch with my family, and I just don't see that happening. So you know, there's some things she said that I just thought were, no. And I had to point out, because she was talking something about family to me at one point, and I said, well, I'm basically estranged from family. I said officially kind of, you know, severely estranged from my son, but I said, even though my sister and I technically aren't estranged, I mean, I could call her and she would probably call me back or whatever. I said, we just don't talk, you know, we just don't have a relationship. And I said, because of the estrangement with my son, I don't know my grandchildren, so they would have no reason to reach out to me. So, and they're adults now anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that she did hit on something. She picked up on it. It was very strong that she said this thing about spiritual attack. Of course, you know, she is a person that does cleansings and stuff, so maybe everyone gets that in their reading. I don't know. See, this is the skeptic in me. This is the skeptic coming out. So anyway, I just wanted to share that today for this week's video. You know what I'm going to talk about in next week's video, though, is I am going to do my research on how I can really, you know, reverse a spiritual attack and overcome it, and talk about some techniques, because I'm going to study this in the next week, and I'll be back on here and I'll share some of that with you then. So until then, be well, be kind, take care.